If you listen to people talk about good defenders in this game, like in a player review or something like that, it's usually mostly about their speed, maybe body type and their height, maybe sometimes their tackling stats, and often even agility and balance in their dribbling stats. So, of course, all these things matter to some extent, but it seems like many people don't care about one key attribute, and that's defensive awareness. So it's hard to say exactly what defensive awareness means just by thinking about it, just by reading those two words. But if you did, if you did read into some of the past pitch notes from the previous game and this game from EA, you'll see some following little excerpts about this attribute. And so I'll just read some of them out to you. It may take a little bit long here, but if you're kind of bored of this stuff, of course, I'll have a little timestamp. You can skip right to the good stuff. But so it allows for the ability to track a run and even anticipate one before it happens, with highly aware defenders doing a much better job at staying with their runners. Okay, so obviously that's a good thing. Whether that works out or not, and whether it's important or not, that's kind of, we don't know. That's kind of up in there. We just have to kind of trust them for their word, which I don't know if we can. It gives the ability for two defenders that have high attribute to mark a striker so that they have limited space to avoid a counterattack. So I've seen this in parts, but I just need to work it out a little bit more in order to make a video on it. So hopefully in the near future, we can do a video on that and see if it's important and see if it'll help you. Again, you need two AI teammate players, each with very high defensive awareness. Okay, moving right along. The ability to intelligently mark and track runs by attackers without giving up or leaving them open. They will track dangerous attacking opponents even if they are already marked by a teammate due to the scale of the threat. Again, even this last little bit, it says due to the scale of the threat. So this is kind of all dependent on what EA thinks is a high threat and what it's a low threat and so on. So even if this actually is a thing, we don't know how well kind of it works. So this is a little bit hard to test, but maybe we can go over that in the near future. Okay, furthermore, awareness to position themselves better in order to cut off passing lanes and limit the opponent's options. This is another aspect that, just looking at it in some of these practice games, you can kind of see. And again, we'll go over this in the future. And it requires an AI teammate in a defensive midfielder capacity with a very high defensive awareness. So all of these things, pretty good so far. It determines how active wingers can get when having to perform defensive duties such as marking. So, like in a 4-4-2, defensive structures, like we went over in the last video, those wingers will have to help out in defense, and this will determine how active they are in terms of marking, positioning, and tracking runs. Okay, also better awareness of the teammate fullback's positioning, allowing them to better work together when marking. So when one fullback pushes up, bombs up the field, the other will cover back and be more aware to mark and track attackers. Okay, so a lot of people, when they play this game, they set their fullbacks to stay back because they don't really trust them going forward. They don't want both of those guys to bomb up, and then you're just free. You're just left with two center backs in the back. Okay, so if you have two fullbacks with really high defensive awareness, you could potentially leave them on basic, knowing that one will help you in support, and the other one will be back there to help you in terms of defense. The other thing is that fullbacks with a high defensive awareness attribute are more effective defending runs on the far side of the pitch than ones with a lower rating. So not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean, but anyway, it's not really the topic of this video. Okay, two more. So multiple attributes are used to differentiate the effectiveness of players when performing a tackle. Obviously, tackles are very, very important in this game. For example, when performing a standing tackle, they use a combination of standing tackle, which people kind of look at, aggression, which is also a little bit of a forgotten attribute, mainly because we don't really know exactly how it ties into the game, and then defensive awareness. And then lastly, before we get into the meat of the video, player personality is what determines how close the teammate gets to the ball carrier while containing. So your second man contain will be the effectiveness of that will be dependent on the urgency. So their effectiveness and their urgency to do so will be dependent on stamina, which is important, and then the duration of the cooldown to recover the stamina. So stamina, and then the attributes of how effective they are is dependent on defensive work rates, which people look at quite deeply. I think maybe a little bit too much, but defensive work rates, stamina, which we talked about, and then defensive awareness. So all of these things are all well and good, but again, it's hard to see if any of these or which ones of them are actually true and to what extent it actually helps you play this game better and win more games. The main thing that really stood out to me is that players with a lower defensive awareness attribute have a reduced jockey effectiveness in order to encourage jockeying with actual defenders as opposed to forward players. So this is really interesting to me, since often you hear people talking about, whether it's a player review or they're talking about defense in general or whatever, that you want high speed, and then after that, you want high agility and balance to keep up in the jockey and things like that. But this seems to, what I read here, it seems to say that a key movement in this game, maybe one of the most important movements in this game, is determined by defensive awareness, which is maybe a B or C tier attribute by most people's standards in this game. Then furthermore, so you have that they added the personality effect to sprint jockey max speed, basing it on the player's defensive awareness attribute, the same thing that I just said there. And the speed scales from 60 to 99 defensive awareness, with any player below 60 having the minimum speed while performing a sprint jockey. Okay, so anybody, say 40 defensive awareness, like an attacker, will have 60 and essentially be terrible at it. And then this other one that's a little bit related. So on the other side of the ball, for offense, for the attack, you have the positioning attribute can impact many elements of attacking personality, blah, blah, blah. What they say is this means that an attribute of 85 might feel good and have a pronounced effect, but 90 is significantly better than 85, and 99 is exponentially superior. Okay, so I'm guessing since they do this for the attack version of this attribute, that it works the same way here. And I do videos for Madden as well, and there's a lot of things that work like this where they really want to highlight the best players. So they 80, 85, pretty good, but the guys that have 90 and high 90s, they want it to be exponentially superior. Now again, does that actually work out? But that's their intention. So I know this intro ran a little long, maybe unnecessarily, but I wanted to outline all of the potential benefits of prioritizing for defensive awareness in your players, and test perhaps the most important and actually testable benefit of them all, in my opinion, is the jockey effectiveness. So with all those good dribblers out there with their tight moves and all the counterattacks they have to try to cut passing lanes on, and the fact that you're jockeying almost all of the time that you're on defense, which is about half of the game. So I think it makes sense to really break this down and prioritize it. So let's see exactly how important it is. Okay, so here's the team that I have set up for the demonstration that I have here. So it's a good mix of players, so I can show you the differences between what's going on here. So let's go here. The left back, I have Andy Robertson. So he has, pretty good speed. Agility and balance is only kind of so-so. But I put a Guardian chemistry style on him to get plus 10 defensive awareness. So he has close to 99. He has 97 defensive awareness. So Guardian for this attribute is nice because you get a plus 10, and also Sentinel gives you a plus 10. There's other ones that give you plus 5. And then other ones, obviously, that don't give you any of it at all. So lots of people put, the shadows and things like that on their defense. But as you'll see in this video, I think that having the extra defensive awareness is better than having the extra speed. Even say if you put on shadow, you'll get a plus 5 defensive awareness, but I'd rather have the plus 10 and you can keep the speed. But anyway, you'll kind of see what you want and what works best for you. Okay, so that's Robertson. So here's Soyuncu. So center back. So he's quite a bit slower, worse agility and balance. He's a bigger guy, but he has 99 defensive awareness. And then I have these two guys right here. So this is kind of watching Neil Guide's videos. I really, really like his videos. But I think his reasoning for keeping Bissaka and Walker at center backs actually doesn't really make too much sense. So first of all, Walker here. So he's really, really fast, horrific agility and balance. Defensive awareness is okay. So it's with I put on the shadow here, which is a common chem style that you put on him. He only gets to 82. And then Wan-Bissaka, so kind of similar, just better agility. Again, he gets a +2 defensive awareness only because he's on 7 chem. And then apparently if you put fullbacks at center backs, they take a big defensive awareness hit. So we don't know exactly what it is, but it's apparently much less than 82. Then you have Bernardo Silva in center mid right here. So he has a defensive awareness of 49, but that will essentially be 60 with how the scaling works. Speed is quite good for center mid, and I put on the catalyst to give him even more speed. So really, really good speed, and then high-end agility, balance, all that stuff. So really, you would think he'd be, zipping around and being able to jockey and things like that. Okay, then we have Conte. Obviously, Conte's amazing. Good balance, great balance, good agility, and then he has the 99 defensive awareness with the Sentinel on him. Fernandinho, really slow, very low agility. Balance is okay. I put on the Guardian on him, but he has a 97 defensive awareness. And then up here I have Mane, who's minimum defensive awareness. I have Bruno Fernandes with actually pretty good at 82, and Saka with 81 as well. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so here we are set up in our 4-3-3 low block right here, just to test how all of these guys feel in the jockey. So I understand that this doesn't work for great video material. It's a little bit tricky. Like you should be able to see this visually, but it's not super clear. So what I would suggest you do is try something like this out yourself with your own team and your own different types of players that you'd like to try. And just see how it feels for you. So when you are actually feeling these guys move, you can tell the difference. Okay, when you're watching it, maybe it's a little bit different, but when you feel it, you definitely can. And then on top of that, when you feel it in the game, when things are going really quick, you're tracking passes all the way over the field, you're tracking runners, you're tracking cuts and dribbles and things like that. It really is more noticeable. So here it's a little bit kind of tricky, not a great situation, but it's still, the best I can do for this video, essentially. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the midfield, actually. So I'll show you here, I'll show you Conte, who I think is probably one of the best jockeyers in the game. So with him, 99 defensive awareness, I'll show you how he looks. And actually, the best way to do this is to do it right in. So if you do this for yourself, the best way to do this is kind of right in front of the ball carrier. Because if you do it kind of away from him, like further up the field over here, it's a little bit of a different jockey. So if you're comparing all these guys, do it in the same spot, kind of right in front of him. So you see as I kind of jockey around, he's pretty good. He's moving around pretty quick. When I use him, it feels good, so I can turn. When I'm going forward and backwards, he's really quite quick. And I think that's kind of common knowledge. Like Conte is a terrific defensive midfielder in this game. I'll just get this guy out of the way. Okay, now let's go to Bernardo Silva right here, who's faster, who has better agility, better balance, and all those things, but he has essentially 60 defensive awareness. So when I use him, and let me go again right in front, he feels noticeably slower to me. So he's slow going forward and back, and he's slow to turn. Like when I do this kind of figure 8 thing, I really have to wait for him a while before I kind of bend. And it's just noticeably slower. Even though he has top end agility and balance, that's much better than Conte. He's faster than Conte, especially with the catalyst chemistry style. They're both, pretty short guys, so it shouldn't be about them being big. It's just night and day difference between Conte and him. So you just see how rapid Conte is. Okay, so again, it's a little bit tricky to see in video. I think you should be able to see it. When you try it out yourself, you'll see that it's night and day. Okay, now Fernandinho. So Fernandinho here is a bigger guy. He's very slow, really bad agility and balance, but he has that 99 defensive awareness. So when I use him, you see he's also almost just as quick as Conte. It's at this, I talked about the exponential increase for the higher rated guys. It's a little bit, in my opinion, sometimes can be tricky to tell. Like the difference between the minimum, which is Silva right here, and the maximum is a huge difference. And then I would say even for me, the difference between 80 and like high 90s is a big difference as well. So, but the difference between say like maybe a 95 and a 99, I don't know if I can really tell it. But you just see he's just so slow to turn around and so slow to move around. So for me, what I do is I have 3 guys in my center midfield. I use Conte. I use what was his name? The Nigerian guy, Onyeka, and I use Fred. And I max them all out in defensive awareness, and they're just flying around like bees, just picking off guys, intercepting passes, making tackles, and things like that. So I really, really highly value that. Then at the back here, so again, let me kind of go in the front here. So Robertson, quick guy. He's also fluid. He feels great in the jockey right here because he has that 97 defensive awareness. And I should note that also, like when you think about those agility and speed stats, they really only matter when you're not jockeying. So when I'm moving Fernandinho around just with the right trigger down, he feels slow. He feels like an absolute semi-truck to turn around. He feels really horrible. But Silva feels better. You see, Silva's quicker. He can turn quicker. But when it comes to the jockey, which when you're in defense, that's really the main thing you're doing, it doesn't matter. Those speed stats, those agility stats, and things like that, they don't matter. All that matters is your defensive awareness. You see Fernandinho, a slow, clunky guy, but once you put him in the jockey, he runs really well. Okay, so yeah, Robertson felt really nice. Now Walker here, who's really, really fast, he feels pretty good. So Walker has, first of all, really bad agility and balance, but because his defensive awareness is okay at 82, he feels okay. He's definitely not near like Conte or Fernandinho or Robertson, especially like when you feel it out, like it really feels different. But he's not bad. Like he's not anywhere. He's much better than Silva, for example. Okay, so that is Walker. Now we go to, so clearly at fullback and at center mid, it makes a big difference. And at center back too. So Wan-Bissaka doesn't have good defensive awareness, but furthermore, he gets a big hit. I don't know what that hit is, but according to EA, they will reduce the defensive awareness of fullbacks at center backs. And he feels, to me, worse than Walker. He doesn't feel quite as bad as Silva, but he does feel the worst of the bunch. He's just slow. He takes a while to turn. Back to back, he's kind of just sluggish. Like he just feels so slow, and personally, I would never use it. Then you have Soyuncu, which is a big dude, a big center back. He's a little bit quick, but he's got poor agility and balance. But you see, as soon as I get him, you just see how quick he is. Just so quick on his feet. I can turn around. His jockey's quick, so then, I can make quick tackles to the ball. I can keep up with guys, and it's just so much better, even though you would think he'd be kind of a clunky guy just because he's big. He has that big body type. He doesn't have great agility and balance. But, in my opinion, from what I see and from what I read, really defensive awareness is all that matters. Agility and speed matter when you're catching up to dudes. Actually, speed matters when you're catching up to dudes, which is really important. Agility matters when you're running only with the right trigger down without jockeying. But when are you ever going to be doing that, right? So it's really just about jockeying. And it's funny with like Fernandinho. I think like Fernandinho, if I'm running around with him just regularly, looks like this. As soon as I put the jockey on, you see how quick he is. Like it's just a huge difference. Okay, so yeah, that's defenders, that's midfielders. So for me, I prioritize that all the way across the back line. I prioritize it in the midfield, and I'm starting to play around with it at the attack too, right? So, like with gegenpressing, the best attack, the best playmaker is a good press, a good gegenpress. So this is maybe kind of along those lines, that if you have guys that can jockey up the field and that can win you balls up the field closer to goal, you could potentially score more goals. So something kind of playing around with. So somebody like Saka, obviously not the best winger, but with Guardian on him, he has good dribbling and he has passable defensive awareness. He has 81, which means that he's not great like, you know, Conte or Söyüncü or Robertson, but it's passable. So he can move around, he can do things, and maybe he benefits from some of those other things that I listed off in the beginning of the video. But then when you look at somebody like Mane, who has the bare minimum, he's just so slow. Like he will, unless your opponent's terrible and they mess up or something like that, you'll never be able to take the ball off your opponent with him. It's just way too slow. You see just how long he takes. Look how slow he is. And maybe I shouldn't be doing. I should be showing this right here. Saka is zipping around pretty well, kind of like Walker. Actually, they have the same defensive awareness stats. I put Mane here. Look how slow he is. So slow. And then I attack Fernandez. Probably put him in attacking midfield or something. He's quite good as well. He's not like defense level, but you know, we can't get 99 defensive awareness on our attack unless we put Conte there or something like that, which obviously is crazy, but maybe in some cases it might be okay. Anyway, so that's that. I hope this video gave you something. I hope it was interesting. I hope it was clear what I'm trying to show you. If it wasn't, I'd definitely suggest trying this out yourself, because once you feel it, once you feel it in this scenario, it feels different. And then once you fill up your squad with these types of players in game, it just feels so smooth and it feels so good. And you're just flying around. And it's just absolute chaos for your opponent trying to get through your defense. Anyway, so that's it for this video. If you haven't seen my first on defensive structures, I'd definitely go check that out. I would definitely also subscribe and keep your notifications on, because this is a new channel for me, and the game isn't new to me, but I haven't played in the last few years or so. So there's a lot of things that I kind of want to dive into, figure out, see which things are good, which things are bad, how they work, and so on, and then share that with all of you guys, because I think it could be fun for me, and I think it'd be beneficial for you guys as well. Okay, so that's it for this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.